to Momentum in Real Estate, your guide to success in the dynamic world of real estate. I'm Cory.
And I'm Kristen James. Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned pro, we're here to help you reach new heights.
Success in real estate comes from learning, growing, and serving others.
Join us as we dive into strategies for lead generation, marketing, market trends, and client relationships.
Get ready to ignite your momentum and achieve your goals in real estate.
Let's dive in and unlock your full potential.
This is Momentum in Real Estate.
We'll meet Kimberly Falker, a licensed real estate professional in both Florida and Minnesota who specializes in luxury homes and vacation properties. A former attorney and educator, she brings sharp negotiation skills, clear communication, and a client-first approach to every transaction. Kimberly has closed millions in residential sales and built a reputation for personalized service and strong advocacy. She's also the creator of Fail Forward, a coaching program that empowers real estate agents to overcome setbacks, grow faster, and thrive in any market. Welcome to the podcast, Kimberly.
Thanks so much. I'm really grateful to be on here.
We're so excited, Kimberly, to chat with you. So tell us a little bit about your real estate story in your own words.
Sure. My first career, I was a fourth grade teacher for 2 years. I wound up serving on jury duty and I swayed the jury at age 24. So I thought I was all that. So I wound up going to law school. And even though I'm born and raised in Tampa Bay, of course, the middle child of me couldn't use leverage from my family to get a position here. I had to move to Boston to make it on my own for whatever rebellious reason I decided to do that. But I was a prosecuting attorney in child abuse cases for a couple of years, met and married my husband. He's originally from Minnesota. We moved to Minnesota and I took the bar exam, failed by 1 point, and just didn't have it in me to do that again. And so when I stayed at home for a bit, but then when things kind of got a little stressful at home with trying to build our equity, our lifestyle, I decided that I would go into real estate because I knew the process of getting licensed would be far less time consuming than the bar exam again. So it kind of was a random. Now, my mom, mind you, was in real estate for many, many years. And then my younger brother wound up moving down from Atlanta to join her. So I'm like, okay, there's got to be something there. And I watched my mom really crush it in real estate. So it was one of those things where it's like, okay, I'll give it a try. And I did. And in my first year, I made over 6 figures back in 2004. Through open house strategies. So and this is before online leads and before all the internet stuff. So I just took to it and I loved it.
That's amazing. Real quickly, what's your kind of brokerage experience been like? Have you been with the same brokerage your whole time? Did you switch?
Good question. I started off in Minnesota. It's called Edina Realty and it's a Berkshire Hathaway's company. Now, mind you, back then in 2004, your brokerage mattered more than you and your brand. So there was the two heavy hitters, which was Coldwell Banker and Edina Realty. And so Edina was red and Coldwell was blue. And so it was always the battle of those two colors. And if you weren't with one of those two, you kind of weren't seen, so to speak. Well, then Sotheby's came into the world, broke into the brokerage world there in Southwest Minneapolis. And obviously it was deemed as a very high level luxury. And so they were only letting certain agents in. And so they recruited me, which, I felt very special back then, but but you had to have a certain level of production. And I really, really loved that brokerage. Although I have to be honest with you, it was a very expensive brokerage to be in because they demanded a certain amount of marketing budget. And you had to back then for every listing, you had to advertise in the New York Times, which it's just funny. But I mean, it was thousands and thousands of dollars of marketing for every listing. And the higher price point of a listing, the more you were required to spend. So I loved it. It was really fun. It was very collaborative. And we were kind of this elite group because it was very rebellious to jump over to Sotheby's. So I had a blast doing that. To be honest with you, in 2008, 2007, when the market crashed, I had probably at that time maybe $10 million worth of listings on whatever live. And like within 2 weeks of that crash, everybody pulled out. And so I kind of, and people, good people kind of got a little ugly because it was so stressful. And my kids were quite little at the time. And my son was like, Mommy, am I going to see you when you come home today? And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take a little break, even though probably was the worst time ever because my husband manages money. And so his pocketbook was hurting too. But I was just like, it's just too stressful and I wanted to be more present for the kids. And so I did take a little break. I actually wound up working in a law firm to see, do I want to go back in that world? And what I realized is I don't like having a punch the time clock job anymore. So took a little break, went back in, and then kind of restarted and went back to Edina Realty because we had moved to a different location in the Twin Cities. And so I restarted my market all over again in a whole new area, whole new strategy. And I had a blast doing that because I kind of did it instead of building my brand, I actually approach it transactionally. I'm like, okay, I want to make this much money. When I make this much money, I'm going to quit for the year and then I'll start again next year. So I kind of did it a whole different strategy and it worked and it was fun. And then ultimately we moved down to Florida when we first got here. I was with Remax. Actually, it's my brother owns the brokerage. And so I worked on with him as a team member, broke away, kind of on my own again, and then discovered the cloud-based brokerages and wanted to give that a try. So, and my brother and I are very close. So it wasn't a negative breakup, so to speak. But so anyway, I've tried the big box, I've tried the corporate, I've tried the cloud-based. So it's been very fascinating journey in the world of real estate, and especially going back to the beginning of your brokerage matters more than you. And that's changed, as you guys know.
For
Now it's
sure.
like you are the brand. Nobody asks me ever who I work with.
Right.
Never. And
Exactly.
in fact, once I put my sign in the yard, they're like, "Oh, I hadn't heard of that." It's just like didn't even know. So I like it now. It's a
Yeah.
lot more fun, I think.
That's great. Well, it's such a breadth of experience. And yeah, it's just given you kind of insight just over, kind of a couple decades in the industry. One of the things I know Cory and I want to explore and probably spend the most of our time talking with you about is your coaching program because I think it's really really interesting and probably of great interest to our audience. But I want to play off of what you just talked about in terms of having to sort of restart as an agent and I know you've had to do that in like 5 different markets over your
Mm-hmm.
career. I'd love if
Mm-hmm.
you could just like kind of download some lessons learned, how you built trust and authority quickly, and how to sort of avoid burnout when you're like the new
I
person,
know.
each of
Right,
those
right.
experiences.
And I feel like in some ways it's gotten easier to restart, and in other ways it's almost harder because there's so many shiny objects of how can you restart. I still believe that what old school fundamentals are still the best place to start. And what I always tell agents, when you're not busy, you need to learn your product like the back of your hand. And I think two ways to do that. I mean, one is my open house strategy that I still implement to this day and I teach other agents is it's not just putting a sign in the yard and showing up. It's actually doing a lot of research and learning the data before you go there. So you literally are the market expert during the open house. So really and truly, you're not just trying to sell the open house, you're actually selling yourself as the product. But you can't sell something you don't know like the back of your hand. And I think the best way to start if I had to move somewhere tomorrow is I would find other agents open houses and and this is what I did in the very beginning. In 2004, I had 2 babies at home and I talked to a high level producing agent. I said, "How can I get my first piece of business?" He said, "Well, you got to get in front of 75 to 100 people. Best way to do it is open houses because you've got people that are raising their hand." Back then, there were more looky-loos, but I find today, since everybody starts on the internet, if they get in their car and walk into a house, that's their second showing. I mean, that's a true showing. And so they're further down that funnel, so to speak. They're typically jogging slash running versus walking and window shopping. But anyway, so I decided to kind of go fast and furious. And so I did 4 open houses each weekend at 4 different locations in 4 different price points to learn my sweet spot and to learn the market. And I figured if I have to get in front of 100 people, then I need to do it faster, so I need to do more. And it was really eye-opening because if I did an open house on Saturday in a $400,000 house, and I always did it for other agents. So I'd start on Monday prospecting for the houses I was going to do. And I was very strategic about it, and I still am if I do somebody else's open house, because I wanted to be in a high trafficked area, and I wanted to strategically do open houses for move up buyers because if somebody's moving up, you might have something to sell. So I didn't want first time home buyer price points, and so it was kind of a strategy to try and figure out who those people are. And just like any of us, I wound up finding that the people I liked working with best were somebody that was in the same stage of life as me. So it was kind of you work sometimes best with those who could be your peers. But before I do the open house, I would study the market for that house. So it was $400,000. I would literally go and preview all of the houses in the radius of that house I was going to do the open house for. So I understood what $400,000 meant in Southwest Minneapolis. What does it feel like? What are the attributes? What are the amenities? And so if you know your product, and that's what I tell agents now, and this is what I would do if I moved somewhere, is until you're busy every day, you should be getting into, or every week, at least get into 10 houses a week and get into the houses in the areas you wish to work in the price point you wish to work in. And I tell agents, you don't have to wait for years of experience to break into luxury. You just have to be a knowledge broker of luxury. You have to know everything about it. Like here in Tampa Bay, it's waterfront properties and you have to know the seawall and the rules on the docks. And, you have to be an expert so that when people come to your open house, you can talk like an expert, but also you get so familiar with the houses in the price ranges so that you feel comfortable and then you feel confident. And then if you have that chance to present yourself at a listing appointment, you can talk from true boots on the ground experience. Anything on top of that, in today's day and age, it brings you social proof. So every time you go preview a house, you do a little mini tour, video tour, and you don't have to make it fancy. You can just stand in front of the house and say, what does $400,000 get you here in Safety Harbor? And then, do work with a little editing and you've got to put music behind it. And people love to see that. But more importantly, if you're not busy, people assume you're busy. People assume you're showing people that. And so you're learning your product and you're showcasing that you're working, and it just gives you confidence. And then the final piece on that, besides the social proof, is when you're out and about with friends or wherever, to happy hour with a group. It's a really fun name dropping thing. Oh my gosh, you should have seen the amazing kitchen I just saw yesterday when I was showing a property out on the beach. Oh, tell me about it. And so it's really one of those things where you can work that angle of getting inside houses, and that's what we get to do for free. Not free, but you know what I mean. But I think that too often agents get caught up, stuck behind the screens, or just cold calling and thinking cold calling is going to always be the answer. I'm not saying that's not an answer, but open house, it's not a cold call. They're coming to you. And if you know the market like the back of your hand, they will be impressed by the knowledge that you provide. So if you know the stats, like just off the cuff, like, oh, well, you know that the average days on market now has 67 days. This time last year, it was 38 days. So the market has shifted. So when you talk intelligently and academically, then you're more likely to have a buyer at your open house choose you over the random agent that just says, you know, nothing but here's some water and cookies. I don't know. I think too often open houses are deemed low quality form of lead generating. And I think if you do it right, it can be a really great, it's inexpensive. It does take time, but if you do it like a project, if you learn the data, then it can actually be a free resource rather than paying for Zillow leads or all the other paid for products that we're get caught up in thinking it's going to be the happy answer. But face to face, because I say this to everybody, in real estate, it's like dating, like it's a chemistry thing. If they like you and they're impressed by you, they're going to choose you. And I mean, just this year alone, half of my business has come from open house, easy peasy, nice conversations, and they already know and like and trust you.
I love that. So, at what point in your business did you switch over to sphere of influence, or when did you start using your sphere of influence? Because it sounds like, you do go out and meet with your friends. What does that look like?
You know, I've had friends use me in the past. I don't lean into it a whole lot because everybody has so many friends that are realtors. So years and years ago, I did not try and make that too heavy because it led to hurt feelings if they chose, this friend over this friend. So I just figured that if you show proof of your professionalism and your quality of business, then you'll get chosen the right ways. What I get now, I'd say 97% of my business is from people I've worked with in the past. And so that makes that very nice. And so it's actually gotten me a little lazy in the prospecting department, but it works out.
As I mentioned, Kimberly, we're curious to dive into your coaching program. So give us kind of a summary um,
Sure.
of this fail forward. I love that title, by the way.
Yeah.
And it's such an apt, mantra, especially in our industry, but any entrepreneurial kind of work. So just give us kind of the primer on fail forward.
Yeah. So it came from a conversation I had with a woman at a conference that I was at in Dallas, and she had just moved brokerages and was trying to kind of restart, rebrand. And it was she and her husband and I talking, and she was kind of talking about farming and different ideas. And she's been in the business like 5 or 6 years, but she was just a little, uncertain on. And so I just started chattering with her and her husband about like different ideas, creative ideas. And I'm really great at the idea formation because I know what works. I know how someone can be successful, and there's many lanes of an agent to become successful. So her husband was standing there and he's like, "Are you kidding me?" He said, "You just gave her like a month's worth of coaching, and she's been paying out the wazoo for a coach and has not gotten anything from it." And so then it kind of on the plane ride home, I started thinking about it. And I myself have paid thousands and thousands of dollars for coaching with all the top coaches in programs in the country. And while really good, the one thing that was always frustrating to me is, you'd get a set of tasks based on your goals and based on their, coaching of those goals. And then you'd meet with them the next week and they'd say, "How would it go?" And either A, I would be crunching right before the appointment to try and complete some things, or I'd be like, "Ah, I failed at this." And they would say, "Well, what are you going to do differently, or what are you going to do? How are you going to change it?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And they give me some ideas. But week after week, if I didn't complete the tasks or the goals, there wasn't really any accountability. So all I really, really wanted from a coach was a bit of a kick in the butt and make it so that it hurt. And so I started thinking about like, what if I reverse engineer the coaching product and make the upfront cost reasonable, but then they only pay me when they fail. So what happens is we have like a one-on-one, like get to know your goals, get to know your, what do you want with your business? And then a weekly 30 to always ends up being 45 minutes call to determine 5 to 6 very specific goals for that week. And within those 5 to 6 goals, there's 3 to 5 tasks that are very specific for that week with an accountability outcome. You can, a way to measure the accountability so they can prove to me that they've done it. And what happens at the next week, if that proof hasn't been provided by the appointment time, then they they have to pay for each test they failed at. So they only pay if they fail. So they have upfront like amount to join, and it's an 8 week program, but they only pay if they fail. And so it's really truly in kind of the beta phase. So right now, my price for your listeners, my price is going to be significantly less because I'm just putting together more case studies. But it's been so much fun because, I mean, as realtors, we have a little ADD anyway, and we do chase a lot of shiny objects. So I'm counting on some level of failure. because otherwise it's going to be very, very cheap. But it's just. But what's been great in the beta side with the case studies I've got is that a when there's failure, like they go hard to work for the next week, and the goals are not easy or small, but they're directly in line with what they want to accomplish, and the goals aren't like what happened with me where you can't crunch it and do it last minute. You have to, it's something that has to show progress through the week. So it kind of helps. It really has helped. And the interesting thing is I've just watched like the scale of how business has gotten better because of hard goals. I'm like, well, shoot, I need to do this too then. But I have a lot of fun coaching. My heart is in helping agents kind of scale to where they can be because I know what it takes. It doesn't mean I always do it perfectly, but it's like being my heart of having been a fourth grade teacher. I love teaching and I love that process. And I know that I'm good at conceptualizing ideas that they might not have thought about or ways to get there that feel a little bit like if they're bugged by showing up on social media, then we can find ways to do it that feels less cringy, as that's the word that I hear a lot. But anyway, it's a fun project for sure.
That's awesome. As we're wrapping up here, I'm just so curious because you have moved markets, what that was like and how you would coach someone who maybe moves a whole different market. Because I know we have lots of realtors that do that and want to stay in the same career path.
Yes, first thing I would do is like exactly what I said with the open house strategy. I would start getting to know what price points look like in the new market. Secondly, with today's day and age with social media, I'd focus on kind of hyper local, get to know the area, go to restaurants and film about it and get to know things about the area that make it so great as a new person. So kind of I would track my journey of the move. I've just moved to Denver. I don't know anything about it. So come with me on the journey, kind of go on the journey. But in that process, visit houses. But I think that the more you get to know the area, the more you can speak about it. And I think then the by also doing open houses, I think then business would come to you in a maybe not immediate, but I think more organically and higher quality.
I'm curious, Kimberly, how are you balancing coaching, like your coaching business and production? Are you doing both simultaneously? Or are you trying to like shift more into coaching as the majority of your time versus production? What does that balance look like?
Well, right now, to be honest with you, like I said, I've gotten a little lazy in prospecting for unknown business. And so I've been very fortunate that I've stayed in production at a level that I really enjoy because it's with past clients and it's in price points that make me smile. So it's more enjoyable. Right now the market's a little sluggish, so it's a little trickier, to configure. So I do think about needing to do a little bit more prospecting, but but I enjoy the coaching so much that, I'm not too busy in either right now because the coaching's really it's like it's kind of in a beta formation stage, so I'm building it out. So I don't know yet when the tipping point of too many coaching versus production. And I've got VA help, virtual assistant help to be able to work with some of the behind the scenes stuff. And then obviously got the podcast editors. So it's like things that I can take off my plate pretty easily.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. In closing, how can our listeners find you? Like, what's the best place for them to go if they wanted to connect with you?
Everything is my name. So Kimberly Falker on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. It's been a little inconsistent, so there's not a whole lot to show there. Facebook, Google, everything. It's just my name. I haven't branded the Failing Forward to make it the searchable thing yet. It would be just, and like I said, I'm still working on the back office stuff. So if somebody's interested, if you're hearing it, it's August 2025, over the next few months, reach out. You'll get a beta pricing. But Either way, if it sounds like a curious 8-week adventure that you want to go on, I'd love to help you.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Kimberly, for your time. We really appreciate you. And go get some open houses, you guys.
Yeah. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Momentum in Real Estate. We hope you found valuable insights and strategies to propel your real estate journey forward.
If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us continue to deliver content that resonates with you. Remember, success in real estate is about continuous learning, growth, and serving others. Keep that momentum going and watch your business thrive.
Until next time, keep pushing forward and bringing your real estate dreams to life.
This is Cory Wall
and Kristen James signing off from Momentum in Real Estate.